doodlewithcass, and welcome to my January 2022 bullet journal setup, which sounds crazy to say because it still doesn't feel like 2022 is actually about to be here. But for this month's theme, I decided to choose Pokémon, but this time I chose artwork inspired by Kerby Rosanes. Now, you may have remembered me mentioning him in my 2022 bullet journal setup, in which my cover page for that setup was inspired by, and I just love his art and I wanted to continue on using his art as inspiration, and I adore how my spreads turned out. Plus, I love Pokemon, so that also is great. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the video. Hello, and welcome to another bullet journal plan with me video. However, this month's setup is obviously special because it marks the beginning of a brand new year. I felt pressured to make this month look amazing because I wanted to start the year off right. The cover page is probably my favorite one-page cover I've ever created, and my head spins after looking at the amount of detail I put into it. For this entire setup, I decided to use no markers and instead stick with only using fine liners in different sizes. I used the Artist Loft fine liners in the sizes 0.5, 0.1, 0.05, and 0.03, which is the smallest fine liner I've ever used. I felt bloody unstoppable with this thing and adding all these tiny ass details. This cover page in total took about 3 hours, which felt pretty reasonable, and I thought it would take longer. However, I haven't done a super detailed cover page since October, so my hand was cramping near the end of this setup, I'm not gonna lie. Another thing I struggled with doing this month was drawing traditionally. I've been doing a lot of digital art ever since getting my iPad, and for some reason I've been struggling with transitioning back and forth from digital to traditional. I find myself almost enjoying traditional drawing less, simply because instead of an undo button, I have to vigorously rub my eraser back and forth across the page and start over, which is much less appealing than simply tapping a button. Plus, I hate eraser shreds. They are my biggest pet peeve of drawing traditionally. Is anyone else like this, or is it just me? Tangent aside, let's get back on track to talking about my actual bullet journal. I was originally going to write the word January using Pokémon font, but instead I opted to sneak the word into the stones to match the lettering to the other runes that are kind of around it. Moving on to my calendar, I have the Pokemon Rayquaza clawing its way to the front of my calendar. This page was probably my favorite to sketch because although I had a reference photo for the style, I had to figure out the composition and movement of the dragon. Once I started sketching, I realized there was no way to draw the Pokemon without overlapping the calendar, but once I did that, it created such good depth, so I kind of rolled with it. Once I liked how the dragon looked, I added the clouds around and also had a few in front of the calendar block to continue creating some depth. On top, I did end up using the Pokemon font, and I split the letters in half with a bold black line before adding some diagonal stripes on the top half. I did this to sort of replicate a look of a Pokeball, and to not leave the top of the page feeling too blank, because just having the word January across the top without having the letters actually shaded in any form just felt very empty to me. Added a small note section on the bottom in order to fill space, and then have a tiny section to track social media growth because I am a stats nerd. My next page is my least favorite page to create, and I think I complain about it every month because it's such a boring process to have to outline all the habit boxes and then do all the layers on top. Naturally, a solution would be to stop tracking so many habits, but instead I like to continue my constant loop of suffering. I do the same layout for my mood and habit tracking pages pretty much every month. So I have the 12 habits on top, a small drawing in the bottom left-hand corner, and then a quote to fill the space in between the habit boxes and the mood box. The quote for this month was apparently said by an NPC in Pokémon. I don't know. I googled Pokémon quotes and this popped up, so I ran with it because I liked it. And it reads, "Living is using the time given to you. You cannot recall lost time." It felt like a good quote to use in the beginning of the year, and for the font I used a mixture of Pokémon font and basic calligraphy with my Tombow hard tip brush pen. So I guess I lied. I did use something other than a fine liner, but only for this page. The drawing in the corner features Celebi, which I almost liked how it turned out, but then I royally fucked up the shading, so it kind of ruined it for me, but from a distance it still looks okay. But unfortunately, I'm never looking at this journal from a distance, so. Two pages are the most functional and least aesthetic pages, which is also a constant thing in my journal, and that is my finance tracker and highlights page. To be fair, these pages also always look way more simple because by time I finish the first 3 pages, I'm just completely ready to be done with setting up my journal. But my finance page just had the word finances with a small Pokeball and then boxes to track my finances in. I did add a little bit of spice with some drop shadows. It felt very Amanda Rachel-y to do because she used to add drop shadows to everything in her early days of bullet journaling. So I was like, wow, little Amanda Rachel-y moment. Naturally, I didn't just color them in black though, but instead was extra and did tiny diagonal strokes that I hated doing the second I started. But then I was committed and did it on all the boxes. Then my highlights page features Munchlax chillin' in a boat because the last reference photo I had was this, and I wasn't about to try to draw Lugia. I added some line breaks to break up each day for where I'll actually write the highlight of my day, and that's a wrap. Here's a final look at how all my pages turned out. I'm super pleased with the results and I hope you enjoyed seeing me set them up. Thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. I really hope you enjoyed and found some inspiration for your own bullet journal. If you do want to follow me elsewhere and see me post my bullet journals throughout the month, I do have an Instagram at doodlewithcass where I post my bullet journal pictures like I said, and I also have an Etsy shop where I sell stickers and art prints that you can use in your own journal. But that's all I have for now, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Toodles!